Hi, this is Group 9. My name's Allie,
I'm Sean.
And I'm Robert.
and this is our video project assignment. So, for our events, we watched two basketball games, one WNBA game, which was the Minnesota Lynx versus the Seattle Storm in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it was on May 29th at 5 o'clock p.m. And then earlier, we had watched the NBA basketball game, which was the Golden State Warriors versus the Portland Blazers in Oakland, California, which was on May 16th at 5 o'clock p.m.
The NBA game of the Warriors versus the Blazers, our analysis showed that they had one female announcer named Doris Burke, who is pictured. However, she was stationed on the sideline and was not on the full broadcast. Advertisements were primarily directed towards men with a lot of beer and car commercials. They also showed attractive female fans in the stands throughout the game. The announcers talked about Enes Kanter, who was fasting for Ramadan during the game since he was a Muslim, or is a Muslim. They asked Del Curry how he thought his wife was doing, rooting for both teams since they have sons on each team.
Our observations from the WNBA game, there were no female announcers, all male. Only one team coach was female. Jerseys had advertisements on them, and this was different from NBA jerseys, and we thought it was a little distracting with all the advertisements pictured on them. The announcers put emphasis on skill instead of physicality, which was also different from what the announcers mainly chose to speak about in the NBA game. For this game, there were two male referees, one female. The advertisements were targeted to girls and were empowering to women. The game of WNBA is actually shorter in duration. There are 4 10-minute quarters instead of 12-minute quarters like in the NBA games.
And so for our concepts that we thought related were, one of them was stealth feminism. The definition of that is it's an arena where feminist questions emerge, where feminist principles and goals can be articulated, and where feminist strategies for change achieved, all without an explicit declaration of those questions, principles, goals, or achievements as feminist. So an example would be the commercials, where a lot of them were Nike commercials that Nike puts out that empowers women and says that women can do anything, whereas you might not see that commercial in an NBA game because it's not somewhere where you're going to promote women playing sports since it's a male sport. And then another advertisements were all about like fathers raising their daughters to play sports, and from when they were younger to when they were older, and just a lot more nurturing commercials than you would see in the NBA games where it was more beer and cars.
Another concept that we had of this was the orthodox gender ideology, but more specifically that professional basketball is male-centered. So the definition for male-centered is men and men's lives are expected to be the focus of attention. Therefore, there are few women in women's sports represented in sports stories, legends, record events, Hall of Fame, and media programming. And that is from the Coakley textbook. The advertisements in the NBA game were all male-centered, with a lot of them being towards either beer, cars, or male-dominated food places like Applebee's, where it was mainly like heavy steaks and drinks and stuff like that. Another example of this was when they were interviewing Del Curry and asking him about his two sons, who one plays for the Warriors and one plays for the Trailblazers, asking him how his wife felt with all the criticism that both his sons get. This was a problem since Sonia was sitting right next to Del and could easily been asked for her opinion on the matter instead of Del talking for her.
And our last concept, we have gender as organization. The definition of this is that gender as organization refers to the ways that positions, roles, and responsibilities are structured around gender. The pattern of men in positions of control and women in positions of support show how jobs and statuses are primarily seen as being for men. We see this with the 6 female referees in the WNBA playoffs, but only 3 female referees in all of NBA history. There's only one female coach for the WNBA game, but no female referees. So the positions of power are primarily handed to men, while as positions of support are then handed to women.
And so the 3 questions that we have for you, one of them is, how do you think that the WNBA can advertise to a larger audience and draw more media attention and bigger crowds?
Our second question is, do you think the differences in the rules and regulations in WNBA versus NBA are reasonable?
And finally, why do you think that there have only been 3 female refs in the entire NBA history, whereas the WNBA has female refs that comprise about half of their ref staff?
And then here are our references. Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.